Broadway, opera houses, comedy clubs, concert halls. For centuries, these have been places where magic is made in real time, where artists give everything they have to an audience hanging on every moment. But sometimes, magic turns into something no one could have scripted. For a few extraordinary performers, the stage wasn't just their life. It became the place they took their final breath. These are the stories of 15 men and women who died doing what they loved, in front of the lights, the music, and the people who adored them. Mikaben. On October 15, 2022, the Accor Arena in Paris was alive with music and celebration. Michael Benjamin, better known to the world as Mikaben, was a Haitian singer, songwriter, and producer whose voice carried both the joy and pain of his homeland. That night, he was performing alongside the legendary band Karimi for a highly anticipated reunion concert. Fans danced, sang, and cheered as Mikaben moved across the stage, delivering an electrifying performance. Then, just after finishing a song, he suddenly turned, took a few steps, and collapsed in front of thousands. At first, many thought it was part of the show, but the music stopped and panic swept the stage. Paramedics rushed in, but nothing could be done. Mikaben had suffered a fatal cardiac arrest at just 41 years old. His final notes still hung in the air, a farewell no one saw coming. Leonard Warren. March 4th, 1960. The Metropolitan Opera, New York City. Leonard Warren was in his element, mid-performance in Verdi's La Forza del Destino, a role that made him a legend. His deep, powerful baritone filled the house as he sang Urna Fatale. Then, in the middle of a phrase, he stopped. He looked uneasy, took a breath, and collapsed. At first, some thought it was part of the staging, but the curtain fell and whispers rippled through the audience. Warren had suffered a massive stroke, dying instantly. It was the first time in the Met's history a performance ended because its leading man had died on stage. His last note truly became his last breath, a farewell no encore could follow. Richard Versale. January 5th, 1996, the Metropolitan Opera. Tenor Richard Versale climbed a ladder high above the stage in the Macropulos case. His character was about to utter a line that would forever haunt opera lovers. You can only live so long. Seconds later, Versale keeled forward, tumbling into the stage machinery below. The audience gasped, unsure if it was an intentional dramatic fall. It wasn't. He had suffered a massive heart attack and died instantly. The eerie synchronicity between his last words and his sudden death stunned the opera world. Critics later called it a final curtain more chilling than any script could devise. Incognito. On April 11, 2019, at the Lone Wolf Comedy Club in Bicester, Oxfordshire, the crowd was in stitches. Incognito, a veteran of the British stand-up circuit, was in his element, working the room with a mix of biting wit and unpredictable energy. Mid-set, Cognito joked about having a stroke on stage, even quipping, "Imagine dying right in front of you lot." The audience howled, thinking it was all part of the act. Moments later, he sat down on a stool and didn't get back up. People chuckled at first, waiting for the punchline, but the silence stretched into something colder. Paramedics were called, and the horrifying truth emerged. Ian had suffered a massive heart attack. He died exactly as he lived, in front of a crowd, with a joke still hanging in the air. Giuseppe Sinopoli. On April 20th, 2001, the grand stage of the Deutsche Oper Berlin was set for Aida. At the podium stood Giuseppe Sinopoli, a world-renowned Italian conductor, composer, and trained archaeologist. Known for his deeply intellectual approach to music and his ability to pull raw emotion from an orchestra, Sinopoli was at the peak of his artistry that night. The performance had reached one of Verdi's sweeping climaxes when Sinopoli's hands began to falter. Mid-conducting, he suddenly collapsed in front of the orchestra, singers, and a full house of stunned opera-goers. Sinopoli had suffered a massive heart attack. He was just 54 years old. His final moments were spent surrounded by music, leaving this world mid-phrase, mid-passion, mid-performance. Kostatic. On March 11, 2023, Johannesburg's Nasrec Expo Center pulsed with bass as thousands gathered for the Ultra South Africa Music Festival. Kostatic, was one of the country's rising rap stars, celebrated for blending amapiano, trap, and hip-hop into a sound uniquely his own. His high-energy performances and intricate dance moves had made him a fan favorite across the continent. That night, under the blazing stage lights, Costa delivered hit after hit, moving in perfect sync with his dancers. Mid-performance, he suddenly stumbled, regained his footing, and pushed through, determined to finish his set. But moments later, he collapsed again. The music cut, medics rushed in, and a stunned crowd watched as the 28-year-old was carried away. He had reportedly suffered a seizure, later linked to an underlying health condition. Kostatich died doing what he loved most, performing for a crowd that adored him. Nick Mensa. On May 21, 2016, the Baked Potato, a cozy jazz club in Los Angeles, was alive with the sound of heavy grooves. Nick Menza, former drummer for the legendary thrash metal band Megadeth, was behind the kit. Known for his lightning-fast hands, rock-solid timing, and charismatic stage presence, Menza had helped define Megadeth's most celebrated era in the 1990s. That night, he wasn't playing to an arena of thousands, but to an intimate crowd of devoted fans. Performing with his band OHM, later mid-song, without warning, he collapsed over his drums. The music stopped and his bandmates rushed to his side. Nick Menza had suffered a massive heart attack on stage. He was 51. His final beat came not in silence, but surrounded by music, applause, and the craft he had mastered. Meatloaf. Michael Lee Aday, the man the world knew as Meatloaf, was a rock legend whose theatrical voice could soar from a whisper to a roar in a single breath. Born in Dallas, Texas, he became an icon of operatic rock with his multi-platinum 1977 album Bat Out of Hell and unforgettable live performances that were part concert, part Broadway drama. On November 17, 2016, during a show in Edmonton, Canada, Meatloaf was midway through his set, delivering his hit. The crowd was singing along when he suddenly staggered, dropped his microphone, and collapsed on stage. Even in his final years, he remained a performer to the core, a voice built for the spotlight, silenced only when the curtain truly fell. Irma Bule. On April 3, 2016, in Karawang, West Java, Indonesia, the stage belonged to Irma Bule, a 29-year-old rising star of dangdut, a popular Indonesian music genre. Known for her powerful voice, dazzling stage costumes, and fearless gimmicks, Irma often performed alongside live snakes as part of her act. That night, under the hot stage lights and with a cheering village crowd before her, she was in full flow, singing and dancing with a king cobra draped over her shoulders. But during the performance, she accidentally stepped on the snake's tail. In an instant, it struck, sinking its fangs into her leg. The crowd gasped, but Irma, ever the consummate showwoman, waved off help and kept performing as though nothing had happened. 45 minutes later, the venom took its toll. She collapsed and never regained consciousness. Irma Bule's final performance was a testament to her dedication, but also a chilling reminder of the deadly risks she embraced for the sake of spectacle. Mango. On December 7, 2014, the stage at a charity concert in Policoro, southern Italy, became the site of an unforgettable, tragic moment. Giuseppe Pino Mango, a beloved singer-songwriter known for his unique blend of pop, rock, folk, and Mediterranean world music, was in the midst of performing his hit song, Oro. Mango had just struck the opening bars when he raised an arm and calmly said, "Scusami," which means "excuse me" in Italian, to the crowd. That understated pause, and those exact words, would become chillingly iconic. Moments later, he collapsed on stage. Chaos halted the music as medics rushed in, but nothing could be done. He suffered a heart attack and died en route to the hospital. He was 60. Tiny Tim. Herbert Buckingham Corey, better known to the world as Tiny Tim, was an American singer, ukulele player, and cultural oddity who became a household name in the late 1960s. On November 30, 1996, he was at a charity gala in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Despite suffering a heart attack 2 months earlier, he insisted on going on stage. That night, he began singing his signature tune, charming the small crowd with the same oddball magic that made him famous. But as he reached the end of the song, he suddenly collapsed. Tiny Tim was rushed to the hospital, but was pronounced dead from cardiac arrest. His final bow was taken mid-melody, leaving the audience stunned as the music stopped forever. Johnny Hines. In the 1930s, Johnny Hines was a beloved vaudeville comedian known for physical humor and perfectly timed pratfalls. One night, while mid-routine, he stumbled in exaggerated fashion, sending the audience into fits of laughter. They assumed it was another bit, a master at work. But as he crumpled to the floor and didn't rise, the laughter faded into confusion. Backstage crew rushed out. Hines had suffered a fatal heart attack mid-performance. The crowd, still unsure, gave a hesitant applause, believing they had witnessed the most convincing comedic collapse of his career. Only later did they learn they'd seen his real, unintentional final act. Leslie Harvey. May 3, 1972, Glasgow, Scotland. Leslie Harvey, guitarist for Stone the Crows, was performing before a live crowd when he touched a microphone that wasn't properly grounded. The electric shock was instant and fatal. The audience, unsure of what had happened, watched in disbelief as bandmates tried to help. The show ended abruptly, leaving behind a chilling reminder of the risks hidden behind the glamour of live performance. Simon Barrere. In 1951, at Carnegie Hall, virtuoso pianist Simon Barrere was in the middle of Grieg's piano concerto. His fingers, usually lightning fast, suddenly froze over the keys. The orchestra hesitated, unsure if it was an artistic pause. Barrere slumped forward. He had suffered a cerebral hemorrhage and died before the audience's eyes. His final chord was left hanging in the air, incomplete forever. Hilda Baker. British comedian Hilda Baker had been battling dementia for years, but she made a surprise stage appearance in the early 80s. Midway through a sketch, she lost her balance and collapsed. The audience thought it was her slapstick humor, a return to form. It wasn't. She was rushed off stage and later pronounced dead, marking an end as bittersweet as her comedy was sharp. From the opera houses of New York to the comedy clubs of London, from Broadway's glittering marquees to small-town stages, these 15 artists gave their final performances under the lights, with the audience as witness. Some went out mid-song, mid-laugh, mid-line. Others in the midst of breathtaking feats of drama. For each, the stage was not just a workplace, it was their home, their heart, and ultimately, their final resting place. They remind us that in a live performance, every show could truly be the last. And sometimes, the greatest curtain call.